Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Slept On Sports podcast, the podcast where we share interesting, lesser-known sports stories you could say have been slept on. I am your host, Connor Groel, and we have a very special episode for you today with a big crowd of characters. All guys here in my Medill sports program, everybody here with their own podcast. I'm going to spread the podcast love a little bit with our introductions. First off, from the 4 Minutes of Injury Time podcast, we have a big Bayern Munich fan. Don't talk to him about the Lewandowski injury. It's Mike Tyrrell. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Connor. I'm very devastated. Yes, don't speak to me about that, please.
All right, we will avoid the topic, and then the rest of our gang here from the absolutely ridiculous 4th and 4 college football podcast. If you have not listened to this, you are in for a treat. First off, we have the two hot take artists. We have the kings of slander, Brandon Schaff and Brandon Rudy. I cannot wait to hear what you guys will have for us today.
We got so much content. We got more content than we know what to do with.
And then finally, also from the 4th and 4 podcast, we have Carter Byrd, the college sports recruiting expert and the guy that does all he can to put up with Brandon Rudy and Brandon Schaff.
Glad to be here. It's tough to deal with these two goober heads sometimes.
I don't know how you do it.
He answers the call. He does every week.
I don't know how you handle it. I have no idea. These two buffoons are just too much right now. I'm just looking at them, and I just can't even handle it. They're just so ridiculous.
When you get them together, it everything hits the fan immediately.
On this very special episode, we're going to be sharing stories that you definitely have not heard before. Not a chance. So to lead us off, Brandon Schaff, what do you have for us today? What story are you bringing to the table?
Oh, my gosh. Let me tell you about this absolutely ridiculous series in 2016 in my favorite league in the world, the NBA. There is one particular series in the 2016 playoffs. It's the most slept-on playoff series in the history of the NBA. I can't believe everybody doesn't talk about this every single day. And it is the 2016 Western Conference Finals. This is an unbelievable series. It's a 7-game series between the Golden State Warriors, who had just won 73 games, 73-9. They set the record for the best regular season record. They're plowing through the playoffs, having a great time. Steph Curry is the unanimous MVP. And they have the clash of the Titans with Oklahoma City Thunder, who, by the way, back then had this guy, you might have heard of him. His name's Kevin Durant. One of the greatest players. I'm not even exaggerating. He's seriously one of the greatest players to ever play the game. And this man averaged...
Is he better than Magic Johnson?
Well, in my mind, yes, but we could different conversation. So 7-game series, this man averages 30 points a game against the reigning NBA champions that had just won 73 games. It was a beautiful thing to see. Not to diminish the Golden State Warriors, because obviously they won the series, but it was unbelievable. And they just, oh my gosh, I can't get over this. It was crazy. It was crazy. And then the best part was that the Thunder were up 3-1. No one talks about this. Everyone's like, oh, well, the Warriors, they they blew the 3-1 lead in the finals. Well, the Thunder had the 3-1 lead the series before, and they blew it. It was so unfortunate. They were just ready to rock and roll. And what did the Warriors do? They came back. They won this thing in 7 games. It's the greatest series. Don't know why nobody talks about
it. Yeah, Brandon, how did you come up with this story? I mean, I've never heard of this before. Where did you dig into this research? Because this is truly something that I'm happy to learn.
It's crazy. I had to dive in. There's this really underground website called Basketball Reference. I had never seen this before.
Never heard of it.
I had to go in. I had to kind of do a little deep dive, right?
Sounds very interesting.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And I'm just looking, and I'm like, and it piqued my curiosity. I was like, there's a lot of big name players on here. I wonder if this website has any more information that I can find. So I dive in a little deeper. I look at the MVP voting for that year, right? Because Steph Curry is the unanimous MVP. Wanted to see where everybody else stacked up. Russell Westbrook, right? one of the highest scorers of the entire year. He actually finished ahead of Kevin Durant in MVP voting that year. I did not even realize that. He was number 4. Kevin Durant was number 5. It's unbelievable. This year, this series featured 3 players that finished top 5 in the MVP voting. Nobody talks about it. It doesn't make any sense. It baffles my mind. It's blasphemous in every account and capacity. And yet, here we are in 2021. We had to bring it back.
I had heard of Russell Westbrook. I don't think I've ever heard of Kevin Durant or Steph Curry before.
It's a great story because I had heard of Kevin Durant, but Kevin Durant now plays on the Nets, so I didn't even know. I guess Kevin Durant, he spent his whole career until last season, and then he moved to the Nets. Is that right?
There was a little thing there where he went to go play for that team that beat him in the Western Conference Finals. So,
an amazing story to lead us off, Brandon. I want to shift to the NFL, to football, because something that's really concerned me growing up as a sports fan is, you hear about all these sports. They're talking about them all the time: rugby, hockey, table tennis, and I just wish people would talk more about football. No one seems to talk about football. I don't know why. I think it's a good sport. I think, it deserves at least as much attention as cricket does, as underwater basket weaving, some of these really big sports. So I want to talk a little bit about football. And I want to talk about my favorite team, the New York Giants, and one of the greatest upsets in sports history that I would be surprised if you had heard of it before. First off, the premise. What if I told you that an NFL team went undefeated for the entire season, got to the Super Bowl, one game away from the perfect season, and then they blew it?
That would be stunning. Did that really happen?
It did.
That would have to be all over the news, right?
I think I would be infuriated if something like that happened.
So listen, we have the New England Patriots. Now the Patriots, they were something of a dynasty at this point in time. They had won the Super Bowl in 2001. They won it in 2002. They won it in 2004. 3 rings for, this wimpy old guy from Michigan, Tom Brady or something like that. They've gone on a good little run, but, it's been a couple years without them making the Super Bowl. So they decide they need to, add some more talent to this team. So they bring a guy, probably haven't heard of him, a little slept on guy, but they bring in a guy named Randy Moss. He had some good years before with the Vikings, but he was coming from the Raiders, where that team had been a bit of a disaster. But he joins the Patriots, and then the Patriots have this unbelievable regular season. They go 16-0. Tom Brady throws for 50 touchdowns, first quarterback to do that. Randy Moss catches 23 touchdowns. That's a record. And these guys, they score 37 points per game. At the time, that sets a new record. They're also one of the best defenses in the league. They only allow 17 points per game. They go undefeated throughout the entire season. Undefeated, 16-0. However, one of their closest games of the regular season does come in Week 17. They play the Giants. They win that game 38-35. It's a close one. But they survive. They stay undefeated. They beat the Jaguars in the divisional round of the playoffs. Then they beat Phillip Rivers and the Chargers in the AFC Championship. And they make their way to the Super Bowl. Now, their opponent in the Super Bowl, would you believe it, ends up being the New York Giants. Now, the New York Giants here are big underdogs in this game. They're 12-point favorites, despite the fact that they are being led by the ultimate savior at quarterback, all-time legend, first ballot Hall of Fame. I don't think you could possibly argue otherwise. Eli Manning, just this messiah of the quarterback position. He's got some weapons around him. He's got Brandon Jacobs, the big, tough-nosed running back, Plaxico Burress. Nothing would ever go wrong with Plaxico Burress. Amani Toomer, Jeremy Shockey, just this incredible offense. Incredible defensive line. Osi Umenyiora, Justin Tuck, the Hall of Famer, Michael Strahan. But the team only goes 10-6. So they're going to need to win road games the whole way to get to the Super Bowl, right? They go into Tampa Bay. They win. They go into Dallas, division champions, the number 1 seed in the whole conference. They win that game 21-17. They go into Green Bay for the NFC Championship game. Wind chill, -23. Tom Coughlin is about to freeze into a block of ice. They win the game. Lawrence Tynes hits a clutch overtime field goal. And the team that no one thought could make it, all the experts picking against them the entire way, make it to the Super Bowl where they face the 18-0 Patriots. And now everyone's thinking the Patriots, it's a done deal, 19-0, first team to ever go undefeated. The Giants say not so fast. It's a very low-scoring game. The Patriots entering the fourth quarter, only up 7-3. But then at the start of the fourth quarter, an unknown guy, and when I say slept on, I mean really slept on, guy named David Tyrrell catches a touchdown from Eli Manning to take the lead 10-7. David Tyrrell, in the whole regular season, only had 4 catches for 35 yards. And he takes the lead with this touchdown, and everyone's thinking this is definitely going to be the biggest play of David Tyrell's career. Nothing he could possibly do from this point on would top that. The Patriots they strike right back. 14-10 New England. Giants get the ball with less than 3 minutes remaining. Down 14-10, they're going to need a touchdown to win it. They get to a difficult situation. It's a long third down, just shy of midfield. And people are really thinking, it's going to be over if the Giants can't convert here. The Patriots are going to do it 19-0. A lot of people, I'm sure, Brandon, if you were a football fan at this time, you would have been saying,
it's over. It's over. I would have been saying it's done. It's a done deal. Signed, sealed, delivered, take it to the bank, cash it in. Oh, I would be so excited.
But you would be speaking too soon, my friend.
No.
Eli Manning drops back, swarmed by the Patriots defense. They're grabbing on his jersey. They're trying to bring him down. They can't do it. Eli Manning is too strong. He avoids the pass rush. He scrambles to his right. He throws up a prayer, double coverage. And guess what happens then? David Tyrrell, the nobody from before, he catches the ball on his helmet. As they try to strip it away from him. They can't do it. David Tyrrell brings the ball down. The Giants have a first down, and then they're moving. And from there on, it's just a couple plays later where Eli Manning connects with Plaxico Burress in the end zone. It's a beautiful touchdown, a beautiful thing. The Giants take a 17-14 lead, and the undefeated season of the New England Patriots is destroyed.
I can't believe I've never heard of that. That's so sad.
Aaron Rodgers would never. The sad thing is that football is just so slept on because it sounds like a truly amazing story. And if football wasn't so slept on, this would definitely be like one of everybody's favorite memories of this sport.
Yeah, this is not as important as like Greg Morganson's 8th underwater polo championship that he won back in 2003. I mean, that was obviously the most important event of the recent times, when he was able to avoid Sharknado.
Here's what I'm going to say. The craziest part of this story, I mean, this has been a wild story, but the Giants beat, lowly Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. And the crazy part about this is 4 years later, Tom Brady, he makes it to the Super Bowl and he plays the Giants again and he loses again. And I think if that proves anything, Eli Manning is Tom Brady's father. Tom Brady, what you have to say, he's a scrappy underdog, but the sad part about him is that he'll just never win the big game.
It's a shame. I really wish he would win more. I wish he was more like Aaron Rodgers, who obviously is the clutchest quarterback ever, and he wouldn't lose. If Tom Brady had Matt LaFleur in a situation 4th and goal, he'd obviously go for it. And, that's why Tom Brady will never be the quarterback that Aaron Rodgers is.
Exactly. I completely agree.
No.
It's so sad for Tom Brady fans.
And New England fans. I mean, this was their one chance at a championship, and they blew it. And they have to live knowing that. They don't really win much. I mean, Cleveland is obviously the dominant city in America. They've won like 20 championships in the last 20 years. So, obviously, it's a big deal.
That was their one chance. I mean, obviously, we know Bill Belichick. He came to the Patriots head coach. He comes from Cleveland, and he had really built that dynasty there. I think he had won 7 championships in a row. And then he goes to New England, and he tries to, repeat that performance.
If only he was Matt LaFleur.
He just can't do it.
Maybe.
He just can't do it. And, the problem, I think, was when he moves to New England, he gets this quarterback, Tom Brady, and he thinks Tom Brady, I mean, this guy could be the next Tim Couch for us. But, he just can't succeed in the same way that Tim Couch did.
It's a really good slept-on story, Connor. I'm happy you brought that to my attention. I'll need to read some more books on it because, obviously, it's very unknown.
It'll be tough to find a book on it because it is so unknown. But if you
that guy, I think he's like on Good Morning America or something. Michael Strahan, is that him? Is that his name?
I thought it's Strahan.
Wait, no.
Strahan. Didn't he play for them? I don't know, man.
Is it the same guy?
Dude, I don't know. I've seen his face a couple times.
Yeah,
but
there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, ex-athletes never get into entertainment after
that's
play.
too good of a story to be true. Come on, Schaff.
Perhaps it's a little slept on.
So here's what I'll say. I'll do some research on that, and if that's the same Michael Strahan, we'll have to do an episode about him.
We'll do a Michael Strahan exclusive.
Yeah. So I mean that's my story. Who wants to take the next one?
Yeah, so my slept on story is a little college football game that is very unknown. We see all these great games over the years, but this one is obviously one that a lot of people kind of forget about. And it's the 2006 Rose Bowl game between Texas and USC. Have you guys ever heard of that before?
My Texas? No, I've never heard about this at all.
Really?
We have our own television station at UT, the Longhorn Network. And, they have all this time that they need to fill on the air. And I keep telling them, I say, show us some of these old games that some of the newer students might not have ever heard of, but they continue to refuse to do it. So I actually haven't heard about this.
I'm going to tell you, this one team here, the USC Trojans, I don't know if you've heard of their history before and all that. They're one of the most successful college football programs in history. Let me tell you, they had a 3-year period where they were just unstoppable. Did you know that they won 34 straight games spanning from 2003 to 2005? It's insane to me that teams can win that much in college football. That's just almost unheard of. They had this great quarterback, Matt Leinart, I believe is his name. He could be related to Matt Leinart, who is on the Fox pregame show now for football. They might be the same person as well. We'll have to get involved there. They had a great running back, Reggie Bush. Did you know Reggie Bush, he won the Heisman Trophy and they took it away from him?
I wonder why they did that, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get that far in my research, but I will certainly look that up later because this is so slept on. You can't find this stuff on the internet. I had to go through a lot of archives to find it. I had to go to the local library to find the USC information. It's very, very difficult. Texas, once again, this USC team, I mean, I'm going to go to bat for them. I mean, I know no one knows about them, but I'm going to say this is one of the greatest college football teams of all time. They were so dominant. Did you know that they scored 50 points a game in the 2005 season? That is just absolutely insane.
Yeah, behind their workhorse back, Lendell White.
Yeah, Lendell White. Absolutely. I'm surprised you know that name, Carter. You must have got to the archives before I did because I saw there was a few fingerprints in there. So it must have been you, but that's okay. A few pages were ripped out, but we'll get back there later. Lendell White. Yeah, he was really good. He went to the NFL. He played for the Titans, the Tennessee Titans that, they're very slept on too, obviously. No one really talks about them coming 1 yard short in the Super Bowl a few years later. So that's, a few years earlier. So yeah, that's a big deal. So this USC team coached by a Pete Carroll, who is once again, I think someone that is kind of under the radar as well. And
definitely doesn't chew any gum.
No, he doesn't chew any gum. He doesn't run the ball on the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl. That doesn't happen. But they were one of the greatest teams ever. And they were playing this Tejas team, is I believe how you say them. And they were started by Vince Young, whose father was Vince Old, obviously. And
I've heard that that's how that works with last names in Texas.
Yeah.
Are they related?
Oh, it's Texas.
Wait a minute.
Okay. I always thought it was Tejas.
Wait, he's related to Vince Old? That's the same guy?
Once again, you got to look this stuff up. I really don't know.
Jeff, use the Wikipedia machine that you learned
I'm
how to
looking
use
right now. This is out of control.
Talk about a slept-on resource, though. Wikipedia. Does anyone use that really? Like, no one's going to the archives anymore. Like, what's this?
All right, wait. I got him. Vince Old, an American actor, producer, screenwriter, and comedian who was in a film called Rudy. Look at that, Brandon.
Oh, Rudy. A film called Rudy. Wow.
Yeah,
interesting.
It's a sports film called Rudy.
I've never heard of this film.
Yeah.
But it has to be amazing.
This guy, Vince Young, that we're talking about, the same guy that is famous for handing the ball off in the NFL to Lendell White.
Wow. I can't believe you knew that, Connor. Yes, these guys played later together on the Tennessee Titans, and they got to the playoffs a few times. Very good. Yeah. So
I had heard of that story. I didn't know that they went to USC in Texas though.
But yeah, so yeah, just really quick, this Texas team came in. It was number 1 versus number 2 in the Rose Bowl. USC was riding a 34-game winning streak, and it was a fantastic game. Now, you guys, I mean, this is January 2006, so you guys are youngins. I don't think you
You're
saw
still
this
like
game.
38.
I'm still 38. That's right. So I remember this game like it was yesterday, but I had to search the dark web for it because obviously it wasn't on TV. No one really saw this game. It was not important,
You navigated the dark web like correctly and didn't end up anywhere.
Anywhere bad.
Anywhere dangerous.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm very happy I survived that. It could be dangerous down there. But the thing is, this was a great game. It was back and forth. It is considered one of the greatest college football games ever, which is shocking to me considering it's so slept on. It was only the third time. This is a crazy stat no one talks about. It was only the third time that two top ranked teams had faced each other in the Rose Bowl up until that point. Obviously, before the Rose Bowl started hosting national championship games officially with the college football playoff, Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, it was the first college football game to feature two Heisman Trophy winners in the same backfield. And Reggie Bush, he got his Heisman Trophy vacated, but up until that point, this guy was unbelievable. And I know Brandon Rudy does not like Reggie Bush, and I know Brandon Schaff does not like Reggie Bush, but I will say right now, he was one of the most exciting college football players.
I have a question for you. So in this hypothetical scenario that we're in, all right?
Yeah.
And it's the greatest college football game ever, all this that you're saying. Wouldn't you think, just think about this for a second, what do you think that if it's the greatest college football game ever with what some people say is the greatest college football team ever, wouldn't they have won that game?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's how crazy it is. This 2005 team, I had no idea that College Game Day announced them as one of the greatest teams of all time. And they lost to Texas. You're right, Rudy. Absolutely. I would argue, though, that these 3 years of USC football were amongst the best ever. 34 straight games, 2 national championships, got to a third, lost to an excellent Texas team that was undefeated with Vince Young, Mac Brown.
Still ducking 2004.
Ever heard of him before? Yeah. Brown. So, 04 Auburn, that they're legitimately slept on. But no one legitimately does talk about that.
Wait, hang on.
Not
this
to
is
say
slept on sports. We're only talking about slept on things.
That's right. Then Auburn 04, everyone knows about them. People always talk about Jason Campbell in the streets every day. But yeah, this was an incredible game, and I don't need to walk you through it because it's so hard to find the footage and the highlights. But what I'll say is USC had an amazing opportunity. They were up 38-26 late in the fourth quarter. It looked like they were about to win a third straight national championship. Vince Young scores on a 17-yard run with less than 4 minutes to go, roughly. So we're under 4 minutes. USC is up by 5, and they're at the 50-yard line. And they try to give it to Lendell White on third down and short, and he doesn't get it. And then Pete Carroll decides to go for it on fourth down to win the game with Lendell White. They do not get it. Texas takes over.
Oh, my God.
And then they score in the final 2 minutes. Vince Young scores. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I saw it for the first time a couple days ago, and it's unbelievable how he scores this touchdown. He holds the ball out. He goes in the back of the end zone by the pylon. Truly an incredible run. You should check it out if you've ever seen it before. It's obviously tough to find a lot of Vince Young stuff these days. Not a lot of people know about him, but it was a great play. Texas won. They knocked off USC. One of the greatest games of all time, the 06 Rose Bowl. I recommend checking it out.
This is crazy to me, Mike. I am so happy you brought this story to our attention. First off, I think we need as many football stories as possible because no one's talking about football.
No one's talking about it.
No one talks about basketball either. That's why I had to bring that in there.
I know.
Come on.
The crazy thing is, of course, I went to the University of Texas. And while I was at Texas, people could not stop bragging about how completely dominant our football team was. When I was there, I don't think we ever lost a game. And everyone was talking so much about how great
always rolled over Kansas
I didn't
by
really
100.
know any of the history of this team. So I kept saying, guys, talk more about the past. I want you to talk more about your past accomplishments so I can learn about them for the first time. And they just refused. So I'm glad to finally be able to hear about this game.
Yeah, I'm happy you guys learned about it. And if you want to
learn more, go to your local library.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to learn
more,
the
information is.
Or go to your local library, read a book.
On the dark web.
Or apparently the dark web where you can find this stuff.
Michael, thank you for introducing that.
Yes, thank you I hope you learned a lot, people. And Have a great day.
Thanks, Mike.
What a sign off. All right.
That's amazing.
I guess I'm going to last here, huh?
Yep.
Oh, I saw.
All right. So for my slept on story, I wanted to bring up, a rivalry that nobody ever talks about, especially in the South. Probably one of the worst rivalries in all of college sports. Brandon Schaff would never try to inject himself into a rivalry that sucks so bad. But it's a couple teams that share a state, Auburn and Alabama, and the year is 2013. Of course, everybody remembers that Auburn was coming off its 3-9 season the year before, and Alabama was obviously in shambles with its head coach Nick Saban, who obviously was an NFL legend. But Alabama actually, contrary to what everybody was expecting, kind of rolled through the schedule, 11-0 going into the final game of the year. And then Auburn, when Auburn won its first game of the year against Mike Leach's Washington State Cougars, Washington State's quarterback after the game said, this Auburn team could really be something if they figure out who can play quarterback for them.
See, I only know Mike Leach as a big Banana fan. Is he also a very well-known coach?
He's actually an unbelievable lawyer. And so we progressed through the season here, and Auburn just kind of, figures out this kid playing quarterback who used to be this really highly recruited defensive back actually at Georgia. Then he transferred to junior college. He started playing quarterback again and came to Auburn, was just massive name. Everybody knew he was going to be so great. And kind of went through the season, they decided, this guy's really fast. And this offensive line is really good at run blocking. And this little 5'8" running back here who kind of had never really done much, definitely didn't run for 1,000 yards on maybe the worst Auburn team in 70 years the year before. They started running the ball on everybody and reel off a bunch of wins. And Auburn goes into the Iron Bowl actually 10-1. And it's number 1 versus number 4 in everybody's least favorite stadium, Jordan-Hare Stadium, where there's 87,451 people who could care less about this game. Sir Charles Barkley was definitely not there predicting upsets of any kind. And Auburn actually jumps out to a little 7-0 lead. Nick Marshall, the Auburn quarterback, has a 45-yard touchdown run to open the game. And then Alabama just kind of does Alabama things and scores 21 unanswered. But Auburn kind of just hangs around. Fast forward to about a minute or so left. Alabama is up 28-21. And Auburn starts a drive. And on, I believe it's like a 4th and 5 with about 32 seconds left, Nick Marshall tries to run the ball. And this corner and the safety come crashing towards him. And they're about to tackle him and stop him short. And Nick Marshall kind of just flips the ball out there to a guy named Sammy Coates, who takes it 39 yards for a touchdown to tie the game. Mm-hmm. Now, 32 seconds left. Alabama gets the ball. And, everybody's thinking, there's no way Alabama's going to do anything here. There's not enough time for them to get in range to try anything to win this game. And, you have the most athletic, most talented quarterback in the history of Alabama football, A.J. McCarron, leads the offense with Auburn fans' favorite Alabama running back, T.J. Yeldon, because he definitely didn't flip on signing day or anything to Alabama and make everybody very upset.
Kind of surprised. I would think that this game would be headed straight for overtime, because if something miraculous happened at the end of the game, I feel like I would have heard of that.
It was, but old
like football.
A.J. McCarron's out here making plays, and actually he completes a pass to T.J. Yeldon, and T.J. Yeldon, he runs across midfield and gets knocked out of bounds, and the clock's on 0. We're going to overtime. Everybody's getting ready for overtime, but it gets buzzed down from the replay booth, and they decide, well, like let's go look at this and see what's going on. And you hear Vern Lundquist and Gary Danielson. They're talking about it, and they sync up their cameras, and it's, oh, well, TJ Yeldon's foot actually touched the ground out of bounds with 1 second left, and like what are the chances of that? And everybody knew to this point that Alabama was just so well known for their kickers. They were just best kickers in America, like constantly talked about. Like always had guys that were up for the Lou Groza Award. Definitely didn't miss 3 field goals before. And they definitely didn't bring out a freshman kicker after their senior kicker had been doing so well to try a 57-yard field goal when his longest field goal was like 42 yards or something. And, he lines up and he's about to kick it. And right before he kicks, this guy on Auburn runs back to the goal line. And it's a guy named Ryan Smith, who's really not the most athletic guy. But Auburn calls timeout, and they're like, hang on a second. That might give us an idea here. And out of the timeout, they throw their punt returner, who actually was the one who tackled TJ Yeldon going out of bounds and was so out of breath that he was on the sidelines. So they throw him back there. And so Alabama goes to kick this 57-yard field goal. On the snap, it's up in the air. And you've got Vern Lundquist just out here saying it's got the leg and it looks like it's going to go through, and it comes up short. And this punt returner back there, Chris Davis, fields it, and he starts to return up the left sideline, and a couple guys miss. The punter, who was the holder, tries to make a play. He whiffs, and Chris Davis ends up rolling into the end zone with no time left on the clock, and Auburn actually wins the game 34-28.
Gotta be kidding.
Definitely.
That seems like one of the greatest plays of all time.
I mean, and nobody talks about it. It's not legendary for any reason. It definitely didn't decide who won the division, which in turn decided who won the SEC and who got to go play for a national championship that year. I mean, there was no implications of this game. There was nothing.
Did you find that in the archives as well?
So a friend of a friend was actually going through the archives, and they had a friend of a friend who allegedly said that they were there, but I don't believe them. I think they just found some archive somewhere and just read it off to them and acted like they were there. There weren't thousands of people rushing the field in the middle of the night. And,
these aren't big schools.
Yeah. I mean, small schools, small implications, small potatoes here, really.
Yeah, I had never heard of Alabama, actually, until Mac Jones this year. It's the first time that
That's unbelievable.
Alabama football, yeah.
Did you know they say Roll Tide, Rudy?
Didn't Mac Jones start that?
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Carter, that was just in awe of that story. Hopefully I'll be able to look it up sometime. I'm so in depth in these reading materials every day. I can't find all this stuff, but thank you so much.
Glad you brought this to the podcast. Hopefully this is something that, once technology gets a little better and we can, right now the internet's kind of, it's a new fad, right? So when it gets a little more developed, maybe we can get some of those more details. But for now, I'm so glad that you were able to share that with us.
All right. So I wanted to talk about this very little known, this very little known athlete. He is currently in the NBA, a league that Mr. Schaff brought up earlier. His name is Zion Williamson. So this is a man that this was like around the time that social media kind of started to become big, right? And somehow this guy had this just ridiculous highlight tape that just nobody ever saw it on social media out of high school. Some of the most ridiculous dunks you will ever see. And somehow he put it on Instagram, and I think it only had like 10 views. So he ends up getting recruited by this somewhat known school, Duke. And he goes to Duke. And at Duke, he only stays for 1 year for some reason. Nobody thought he was that good. And you would never
structurally sound shoes all the time.
Yes, exactly. If you ever watched ESPN, you would never know who this guy is, Zion Williamson.
Well, you said he was only at Duke for 1 year. They probably cut him.
Yeah,
that's what you would think. That's what you would think. But for some reason, the NBA decided, hey, we should give this guy a shot. And maybe he will turn out good. So he gets drafted. He gets drafted by the New Orleans Pelicans in a beautiful draft.
Was it a beautiful? What made it a beautiful draft, Rudy?
This guy brings this story is just it's so emotional for Rudy that he just brings him to tears.
He can't handle it.
So he gets drafted.
Oh God.
He gets number one, and it's because of his athleticism. So get this. This man, he has this little shoe incident that nobody's ever heard of with this company called Nike. And for some reason, his shoe breaks because of his pure athleticism. This man has, now that he is in the NBA, this little known league, he has the second highest vertical in the league, 45 inches. He was the third heaviest in the league behind very well-known athletes, Boban Marjanovic and Taco Fall. So this guy that nobody's ever heard of is one of the most athletic freaks in ever. And it's just so sad to me that nobody has ever heard of Zion Williamson.
That is so wild that a guy that size could be so athletic. And I've never heard of this guy. You know, I'm one of those guys. I'm looking at all the mixtapes, all the recruiting. But I mean, Duke, just a mid-major school, I guess. I miss some of the mid-major guys.
And you would think with the time that we have today with social media and ESPN, with how they hype up all these athletes, that this man would be on there. And I've never seen him. I think what it is, it's almost too much content for the internet.
And really, I think it's just because he plays in a small market, right? You know, if this guy was playing for LA or Boston, I watch the NBA every week, and all I can tell myself is I really wish they were more diverse with the teams that they show on ESPN, because I've never seen the Pelicans play. You know, this is a team I want to see. They got some good players, but they've never been on television. So how is a guy supposed to watch a guy like Zion Williamson play? I have no idea. You know
what they should do? They should put him on the cover of a video game to get him some more exposure.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Wow, Rudy. I need to look up the Zion guy. He seems really cool.
Please do. It's just so unfortunate that people have never heard of this man.
Wow. Thank you guys so much for all coming on the show today to share your slept on stories, some things I've never heard of. You know, I hope all of our listeners have learned something today, like I know I have. It's been a great show. It is April Fool's Day, so happy April Fool's Day to all of you guys. And
haven't picked up on it at this point, dude.
Yeah, you know, if you got sorry realizing that, that's on you.
Wait, it's April Fool's? Oh wow. Okay.
Looks like you need to go back to the archive.
Yeah.
All right. So again, thank you to Brandon Schaff, Brandon Rudy, Carter Byrd, and Mike Tyrrell for all joining me on this special April Fool's Day edition of the Slept On Sports podcast. I'll be back next week with a legitimate slept on story. And until then, it's been a great show. Thank you.
Hey, if you ever want to talk, go for Auburn.
And we will see you next time. Until then, stay sleeping.